Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest episode of the Coach's Corner. My name is Dan Clubb. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by, wait for it, former England, Great Britain, Sierra Leone, Tottenham, Sport, Cardiff, QPR, and of course, Liverpool centre-back, Steven Caulker. Stephen, my friend, how are you? Good?
Yeah, I'm good. You actually missed out a few clubs
A
there,
few. I know. I know. Well, we've only got about half an hour to chat, so no, I'm only joking, man. And actually, I think it's a really interesting sort of dynamic in terms of your experiences and your clubs and just how well travelled you are. Because I actually think it sort of lends itself to the conversation we're going to have a little bit later on about your coaching journey and all that, all those experiences as well. Because actually, you were at Malaga recently. You've been a player and assistant manager at a club in Iceland. So again, lots of different experiences, very well travelled. But we'll get into all of that. Yeah, let's start off with your playing career though, because obviously this is what starts to shape you and your footballing life in many ways. Of course, you come through the youth ranks at Spurs, plenty of loan moves along the way, I think it's fair to say. And you probably don't realise at the time, but some of those adventures, if you like, and going out on loan and the highs and the lows of that probably helped sort of shape you. And you'll be calling upon them in later life as well. But yeah, you start to life in football, I guess, and those early loan moves and just how they help sort of immerse yourself in the life of being a footballer.
I feel like they helped me the most, but get to the Premier League anyway. And it's the same advice I give to so many young players I speak to that, listen, going out on loan for me beats playing in the 21s all day long. Because, I mean, listen, when you're at a club like Tottenham, where I came through, yeah, playing in the 21s is great because you're getting the technical training, you're getting the time, you're getting more time, right? So of course there are some advantages of being there, but for me, that doesn't anywhere near outweigh the advantages you get of playing first team football, where you get experience of playing in front of crowds, you get experience of playing with people who are fighting for their mortgages. It means something. It's not a case of, okay, unlucky boys will go again next week. It means something. They're playing for mortgages, they're playing for their family, and you feel that pressure, and learning to deal with that pressure, I feel helped shaped me from a really young age to be able to deal with what's next in football, because as you go through the ranks, the pressure just rises and rises. It's different pressure. It's not the same pressure in terms of financial pressure, but it's then the exposure with social media nowadays. You can go viral with one slip, and it's like, so I felt like the low moves really helped prepare me for what came a bit later on.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail as we got sort of guide ourselves and navigate through your long career. You get a permanent move to Cardiff, permanent move to QPR. There's a brief loan spell once again at Southampton before the Liverpool move comes about. Now, obviously, Liverpool program, Liverpool channel. We do need to focus in a bit more detail on that move. 10 years ago, where's that time gone? But tell us, Stephen, like, how does that come about? Because you're at Southampton. And all of a sudden, you hear, I guess, through the grapevine, maybe your agent, somebody comes to you and says, "Listen, Liverpool are interested." Like, tell us your first thoughts. What's going through your head there?
Yeah, I've told the story a couple of times, but I'll tell it again for the sake of those listening, because it's almost unreal what happened. I was out on the piss in Dublin because I was at Southampton, wasn't having a good time, and that's how I dealt with things back then. I'm ashamed to say, actually, that's how I dealt with things. I wasn't professional. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have the tools to deal with it. So my idea was, right, I'm out of the squad. I'm just going to go get pissed for a couple of days with a mate over in Dublin, and woke up the next morning, and I've got a message on my phone from my agent, a couple of missed calls, and it's just like, call me in capitals, and I'm just okay, like I've messed up here. That's my first thought, because unfortunately, when I drink, I'm unaware what happened. So it was just anxiety, to be honest with you. So I called him straight away, thinking, what have I done wrong? But actually, it was a case of, look, Liverpool are interested. You need to get yourself home right now, in case it still is going to go through. So I woke up my friend, who actually, ironically, is a Scouser, and he was just like, "Fuck off, lads. This is this is not the time or the place." I'm like, "No, seriously, this is actually happening, or potentially happening." So got back on the plane back to London, and yeah, by that evening I was told, right, it's happening. Get yourself up to Liverpool tomorrow, do the medical, and we had Arsenal, I think, 2 days after that. So it was one of those ones, like, so much Barocca. I'm just drinking Barocca after Barocca after Barocca. I'm just trying to like sort myself out, because taking away, like, jokes aside, right? I'd been professional for so many parts of my career. I didn't get to Liverpool. I didn't get to that stage where I was even in the bracket of being possible to play for Liverpool by luck, right? But that part was luck, and what I so much regret that I just took my foot off the gas at the wrong time. And as I said, I dealt with things the wrong way. So by the time I actually got to Liverpool, I wasn't at my best, and I still had listen, still creating memories for a lifetime. Right, getting put on up front with under Jurgen Klopp was just special. It's amazing, but of course, there's some nights I lie awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I wish that I dealt with things better to give myself the best possible chance of staying at Liverpool long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you would. I mean, I certainly would as well. That you always sort of wonder the if only, don't you? If only I'd have been in a better place, if only this would have happened, etc., etc. But you're right. Like the experience itself, it's quite a surreal one in many ways. Not just in terms of the way you found yourself at Liverpool and the story you've just told there, but then what happens at the football club itself. Because as you mentioned, you come on as like an auxiliary striker in a couple of games. You play against Manchester United. You mentioned making your debut against Arsenal there at Anfield, but we have the Norwich game. That's the game that lives long in the memory of every single Liverpool fan. Obviously, it breaks to Adam Lallana. It's actually you that has the initial sort of shot at goal. So you could have been the hero, you could have been the man of the hour,
Oh
but it
no.
wasn't to be. It broke to Lallana. We've all seen the scenes. We've all seen Jurgen Klopp glasses go bust. Like it's out there every single year on this day. I do it myself, but yeah, it's just all hell breaks loose. Tell us about that moment, being in the heart of it, being in the epicenter of it, the aftermath, the changing rooms. Like, what a game of football and what a way to win.
Yeah, it was surreal. Like honestly, like it's one of those ones where I could have scored myself, but it felt like I'd scored. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like I think the whole team had felt the same feeling because it was just we had a couple of little nibbles at it where the ball sort of like ricocheted around, and then obviously Lallana comes in and just bangs it into the ground, and it was like almost like the slowest loop in history where it's like looping into the goal. So even though it's happening in real time, it was almost like slow mo. And then as soon as it hit the back of the net, obviously we've all run off and enjoyed the celebrations after the game. It never lasts too long because it's always like, especially at that level, it's like if we had a cup game during the week, I think it might be the FA Cup game, and then it's like the next game, the next game, the next game. So there's never too much time to enjoy, but certainly for that hour and then obviously the journey back, it's like, right, yeah, that was a proper buzz. And like you said, it's one of those I see it come up as well every year, and it's like I always smile to myself when I see it.
Hard not to smile when you see that, mate. Honestly, yeah. But you mentioned the journey back there. It's some journey back as well. It's a good 5 hour job that. So it'd be some celebration, I can imagine. You said that you played in your proper position as a centre half in the FA Cup against West Ham, as opposed to being this makeshift striker during your Liverpool career. But just sum up that Liverpool experience if you could, because obviously, you said it there yourself, you would have liked it to have lasted longer potentially, maybe turned into a permanent move. But the fact you got to Liverpool, you made appearances for Liverpool, it was all a little bit bizarre in many senses because you obviously play as a striker and stuff like that. So, but training, working under Jurgen Klopp, like you must look back with great fondness that actually happened still.
Yeah, I did, and I was probably a little bit unfortunate while I was there that I was supposed to play in the replay. If you remember the West Ham game,
Yeah.
because we drew the first one, I was
Yeah.
supposed to play in the replay. Got injured at a back spasm a couple of days before, and just couldn't get rid of it, no matter what I tried. So that was that was a frustrating time to sort of miss just any game, for Liverpool's a special one, especially going and playing at Upton Park. What in Upton Park, what a place that was. So I remember watching it on telly and Coutinho scored, and it was like, yeah, this is my team. This is surreal, playing with Coutinho. So no, I loved it, and I loved working under Jurgen. I learned a lot from him, and a lot of what I'm trying to take into my coaching journey now because he had a clear vision, and I was, I mean. We only mentioned, I think, half my clubs, if that. I've had so many different clubs, so many different managers, and you sort of take a little bit from all of them. But I take a lot from him because I just feel that clear vision, that identity. He knew what he wanted, and it was like when I went away from Liverpool. I'm not just saying this because of the success that they had under Jurgen. I kind of knew. I spoke to anyone who asked me. I said, Liverpool are on track. They're on track to do good things because it was, as I said, just clear for everybody. It was his way. This is what he was going to do, and because he was obviously a very likable person, the players brought into that. And we're doing training before games, which you ask a lot of players, they're like, I'm not doing that. Like, well, not that you have a choice, but there'd be a lot of people that would sort of be like, that's not for me. But everyone's brought into it because I said he had a way about him that just, he's a people person. And I think that's a real good trait to have as a manager.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. When he had the City, well, he shouldn't have the Liverpool half of the City, the red half of the City bought him from day one, because he just knew how to get people on side, I guess, and that obviously extended to the players and his coaching staff. I was lucky enough to speak to Jordan Fairclough recently, one of his fitness coaches, and he spoke in the same way that you are about him. Just yeah, very infectious, larger than
Yeah.
life character. Jurgen. I was lucky enough to meet him just the once and interview him before he left, and yeah, what an experience that was. You mentioned it there. I'll fast forward a couple of questions actually, and I'll work back from there because I wanted to ask you about some of the coaches that you played under and whether you take little bits from all of them really and sort of try and sort of hone them and add them to your own managerial repertoire, because again, I'm not going to mention all the names, but this list of names is really eye-catching. Now, they're not all the best managers in the world, but just in terms of who they are as football people, Jurgen Klopp, obviously, as mentioned, Andrea Pirlo, Colo Torre, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Ronald Koeman, Michael Beale, Andre Villas-Boas, Brendan Rodgers, Harry Redknapp, and Ian Holloway. Now, in different ways, they've all been around for a long time and they've got real sort of like managerial credentials that can stack up to most in world football. So just you now sort of entering the coaching world in whatever shape or form that takes you, like just taking little bits from all of them and the others that you worked under, puts you in a really sort of like quite healthy and quite unique position, I guess.
Yeah, I've just got to address one thing. You've just put Pirlo and Ian Holloway in the same sentence. You know that, right? So
One was at the start, one was at the end.
yeah, I know. Holloway will be buzzing with that. But yeah, no, definitely I take a little bit from all of them, and the good and the bad actually is what I was going to say. It's not just the good side of it, even stuff that I'm not actually. I probably wouldn't do that, and that, I mean, it's all subjective, right? So it's not to say that I know better than any of them because I certainly don't. I'm just at the very beginning, but I think actually that probably didn't go too well with the team. That did work really well with the team, and just sort of finding my identity, sort of my balance in the middle. And as you mentioned, some of those were great players. And I think for me, the foundation of any top manager that I've worked under is a manager that treats people first. So people before the player. That for me is the number one thing because I've seen great tacticians on the pitch, but if you can't communicate and you're not respectful with everybody, not just the players and the starting 11, but respectful for everyone, the cleaners to the kit men and so on, then you sort of lose that buy-in. So I think for me, that's the most important bit is right, get the dressing room right, get a good environment, and then the tactics come second.
Yeah, most definitely. Just to rewind to the sort of your football and your playing days a little bit before we move on to the coaching in its fullest form. You then go sort of on your travels, as referenced earlier on a little bit. You've taken lots of different cultures, lots of different experiences. For you, just as a person, in terms of your growth and sort of that element as a put away from the football pitch in many ways, was that really quite rewarding? Just adding to your life experiences and your just general knowledge of, yeah, the world in itself, not just football.
Yeah, best thing I ever did for sure. And a lot of the British players I speak to have gone abroad say the same thing. It was just unreal, the good and the bad. Yeah, so I'm here in Turkey today. I've played in Turkey for 5 years. When I first went there, of course it was a culture shock. You know, when people are lighting up fags at half time in the dressing room and the coach is okay with it, it's like, wow, what's going on here? So definitely some culture shocks, let's say. But actually, the more time I spent abroad, the more I started to understand different people, how they respond to different things, how you communicate, learn a new language, and I just loved it. So I spent time in Turkey, Spain, Iceland, and then I went and represented Sierra Leone and actually became captain. So I spent 3 years representing Sierra Leone in West Africa, and the experiences there, I mean, wow, that nothing could have prepared me for that. But I tell you what, some of the best experiences and some of the best bonds that could have possibly been created were created there. Nights where we're sleeping in the airport, there's nowhere to stay, there's no hotel, it's just standard procedure. But actually, the bonds that you create there were really special.